Hello! Today I'm bringing you another video, like shock twist. I'm actually doing more than one video. But I looked at my bookshelves after yesterday's video and realised I have a lot of books in there I'm just not going to read, or ones that I've read and really didn't enjoy, so it's time to push them in a box and see where they end up. So, there's quite a few, so let's just get started. The first one I'm going to start with is one that I've not read, and that is The Steel Remains by Richard Morgan, or Richard K. Morgan. This is a dark fantasy novel that apparently has a bi or gay main character. I can't really remember, I just know that that's why I bought it. And it's not even got a dust jacket, it's an absolutely hideous edition. If I'm going to read it, I will find a better copy. But I just don't see myself reading this in the future. I've heard a lot of, things about it. It's very dark, it sounds like it's going to be not a pleasant read, and I'm not there for that. So, this one is going to go bye-bye. The next one is one that I've actually read, and I'm only getting rid of it or boxing it up because I have it in a different edition, and that is The Way of Kings Part 2. To get Part 1, the only edition they had was the big bind-up, so I have the big bind-up now of the complete book, so I'm not sure what I'm going to do with this. Part of me really wants to keep it because I love Bryan and Sanderson and I really did enjoy The Way of Kings, so this one might end up being held on to, but for now it is not going to be held on to. Next up we have one I found on Goodreads, and that's why I bought it, because I saw it on Goodreads and it sounded really interesting, but I've had it for nearly 3 years and I haven't had any inclination to read it, and that is All Our Yesterdays by Kristen Terrell. It's a time travel book, I know that much, but it's not something I see myself reading anytime soon, and I don't really remember anything about it anymore, so I'm just not interested. If I haven't read it now, I'm just not going to read it, so sorry, but it's going bye-bye. Next up we have a book that I read and absolutely despised, so I'm going to get rid of it because I really didn't enjoy it, and that is Grasshopper Jungle by Andrew Smith. I don't remember one good thing about this book apart from the diversity, and if that's the only good thing, then the book is pretty shocking, because the diversity wasn't even fabulous, but it had more diversity than some books. It was just a really mediocre story about praying mantises trying to take over the world. Just really weird, it just didn't go for me, so I'm just going to say goodbye to this one. This book, Unhaul, is kind of the purge of the dystopians, so I am going to be getting rid of Pretties and Specials by Scott Westerfeld. The only reason I'm keeping Uglies is so that if I want to talk about a series that I really didn't like, I can show it. I just didn't get into it, it just wasn't for me, I didn't find it engaging. Dystopians are just not my genre anymore, so these two are going in a box. The next two books in the Great Dystopian Purge of 2017 is The Scorched Trials and The Death Cure. I'm keeping the first book, so if I want to talk about it, I still have The Maze Runner. But these two were kind of forgettable, they're both just mediocre, the whole trilogy is kind of mediocre. In retrospect, I, don't think I'm ever going to reread it, so goodbye, James Dashner books. They are almost all gone. I had 4 at one point, now I've got 1 left on my shelf, so that tells you a lot. The last book in the Great Dystopian Purge is Insurgent by Veronica Roth. I've kept Divergent on my shelf because I did like Divergent, I just think the series gets weaker. I've never even owned Allegiant, I've just read it. I borrowed a friend's copy, but this is not going to stay on my shelf. I don't want to reread it. I'm never going to reread the series. Divergent and Maze Runner and Uglies will probably end up being unhauled at some point in the future, but I'm keeping them at the moment for prosperity. But this one's gone. Next up we have a book I bought used on a whim, and I am never going to read it. I've admitted it to myself, and that is Room by Emma Donoghue. I've seen the book film, I adored the film, and if I'm going to re-experience this story, I'm just going to re-watch the film. I'm not going to put myself through a 300-page book that I already know what happens, so sorry Room, I'm sure you're wonderful, just not for me. Next up we have 2 books that are similar in one respect, but completely different authors, and that is Seraphina by Rachel Hartman and Eon by Alison Goodman. Dragon books I really want to love, but the only dragon books I've only read are Eragon and the Inheritance Cycle. I just don't see myself reading these two anytime soon. This one I got them both free from my friends, they didn't want them anymore. And now I don't want them anymore, so they're just going to go in a box somewhere until maybe in the future I change my mind. But I've had this one for literally 3 years and I've had no inclination to read it. I've had this one for 2 years, no inclination to read it. So, sorry, Dragon Books, you're going in the box. Then the last selection of books I have are 2 authors that I bought loads of books of when I first started BookTube. And while part of me is a little bit sad to see them go, I haven't read enough of them to merit keeping them. So those are these 4 Julie Kagawa books. So we have Talon, which I've read, and it's a dragon book, and I did really like it, but I never picked up the sequel. Never picked up any of the sequels, and I'm pretty sure the last book comes out next year, or must be. I'm trying to think, it goes Rogue, Soldier, they're both out. So this came out in 2014, 2015, 16, 17. Yeah, the last book comes out next year, and I have only read the first one. It's just a series that I'm not going to finish, I don't think. So, bye Talon. Then I have The Immortal Rules by Julie Kagawa. This is one that is meant to be kind of fun, but it's a vampire dystopian. And it's a dystopian, so that tells you all you need to know. And I definitely paid more than £1 for it. Like, I got absolutely ripped off. But I'm just not going to end up reading it. If I'm going to read a vampire book, I've got so many other ones I'd rather read, so this one's not going. And the last 2 is the series that I kind of wish I had started, but I've just never got round to reading the first book. And I don't think it's going to happen. And that is The Iron King and The Iron Daughter by Julie Kagawa. These are part of the Iron Fae series, and I've heard mixed things about it, but I really wanted to read more Fae books. So I picked them up, and I just haven't read them. I've had them for a long time. I saw the 3rd book, I believe, Iron Queen, in a used bookstore last week, and I just didn't want to pick it up. Just no interest at all. So, these are going as well. The other author that I picked up loads of books when I started BookTube, that is Josephine Angelini. So I have Trial by Fire and Firewalker, the first 2 books in the World Walker trilogy. I've never read Traitor's Pyre, the last book, and part of me is sad about that because I did really enjoy these first 2 books, but I never thought about them in between. Like, between this one and this one I didn't think about it, and between this one and the last one's release date I didn't think about it. So I just don't think I'm going to see myself actually committing to reading the last book when I have 0 interest. It's about witches, it was really fun. This is the only book cover change that I've ever been pissed off about, because that is stunning, that is the stupidest thing I've ever seen. But I I would still read them, I'm just not gonna read them though, so these 2 can go. And the last 2 are the 2 books in this that I was most inclined to keep. And that is Star-Crossed and Dreamless by Josephine Angelini. The reason I wanted to keep these is because they're about Greek mythology. That's why I was going to keep it. But I just don't think I'm going to. They're meant to be really heavy romances, and I don't do romance unless it's gay. Which is because I'm a terrible human being who likes to see himself represented in books. So these 2 just are not for me. Sadly, I might come back to these, but for now, that's that. So those are the books that are going to be removed from my shelves and deposited in probably a box to sit in the shed for another 3 years before I do anything with them. But I hope you enjoyed this little unhaul. I will hopefully be back soon. I did finish a book that I want to film a review for, that if you want to check out the review, I did do it on my Goodreads page, so you know. But I will see you soon, hopefully, and that's that. Goodbye.